Mom knows best. She didn't like how this defendant treated her daughter. Let's bring in our law enforcement analyst guest, Sunny Slaughter. Sunny, good morning to you. Want to get your thoughts so far on Tania Wise's mom and her testimony.
Good morning, Julie. I want them to get her off the witness stand. She is hurting. She is keeping her composure. This is her daughter. They are trying to defame her, exploit her friendships, and I'm very proud of her. She's holding it better than I am right now. This defendant is looking rather arrogant. He's just the alleged person, but mothers do know best. We often see things that our children cannot, and we express them. Sometimes our children don't listen. This is such a horrific murder. Domestic violence has far too many names. Tania and Josiah. It's just awful. I just think this mother needs to get off the witness stand now.
Yeah, this is painful for her. Appreciate your compassion as always, Sunny. And thank you for saying the baby's name. I mean, she was really close to her as her mom testified, her scheduled C-section was set to be very soon. She had a follow-up appointment with her doctor, and then she said the following Tuesday they were going to schedule it. She's just about ready to deliver the baby. That element that's added into this homicide serves as an aggravating factor, as you know. Yes. Thoughts on that from the perspective of the state of Florida, that this wasn't just a murder, this is an aggravated murder, as it claimed the life of two people?
You know, I'm so glad that Florida has this aggravator that enhances it, because this child, as you said, was close to being born, which means it was not just one victim, it was two victims. And to ensure that the defendant is charged appropriately for the murder, if he is convicted for the murder and death of two individuals, is really what we need to see forward. And the fact that this is a death penalty case is extremely important. We cannot keep ignoring the murder, the senseless murder of individuals, of women and children, of men who are victims of domestic violence. It is not a castaway crime. This is a crime that is so heinous, and I'm glad that this is an aggravator and that he can potentially face the death penalty for it.
Yes, Sunny. This is awful. You know, and you mentioned earlier, this is a crime of domestic violence that's in question here if the defendant did what he's accused of doing. And we know that this victim, based on the testimony, what was drawn out and crossed, had experienced violence at the hands of other intimate partners. Mom testified about someone named Bradley Rodriguez and another individual by the last name of Burke, who was apparently violent with her daughter. And so Mark Burke, Mark is the first name. So, you know, it's very sad when someone gets in a cycle of violence and trapped in that cycle. It's awful. It's not their fault. It's just unfortunately what happens to some people, and it seems that Tania Wise is an example of that. Sunny, stand by kindly, if you would, please. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from the medical examiner. This is a picture of Tania Wise. She was only 23 years old. I mean, think about it, just a baby, 23 years old on this earth. And she was also the mother of one baby that was walking the earth, and then another baby that was in her womb. We're going to hit a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. We're watching the pregnant mistress murder trial playing out in Florida. This case just opening up today. It's going quickly. We got through 4 witnesses already. The last one was the victim's mother. Not a witness to the incident, but an important witness about the baby, the unborn baby, Josiah, that was going to be born soon. Tania Wise was 8.5 months pregnant at the time she was brutally murdered. The medical examiner's witness number 5 about to go over how she died.
Here we're looking at exhibit number 118. Go ahead and just briefly describe what we're looking at here, Dr. Emil.
This is an initial photograph. This is how she was at the medical examiner's office before we started any of the examination. So it's an initial photograph showing her at the medical examiner's office.
Okay. And is it part of your process for every autopsy to take photographs like this where the victim comes in or the body comes in and you take initial photographs without unclothing them first?
Yes.
Okay. And let's advance to exhibit number 119. And same question, what are we looking at here?
This is an identification photograph. This is taken after the body is cleaned so we can get a good picture of the face for identification.
Okay. And I first noticed there's some red marks on her face and shoulders and chest and arms. Can you explain to the jury what that is?
One of the things that happens after we die is the postmortem settling of the blood, which is called livor mortis or lividity. When we die, our blood stops moving in our body, and it will settle to the dependent area by gravity. So if you're on your back, it can settle on the back. If you're lying face down, it can settle on the front of the body. And for a period of time, that can move. Like for a period of time, if someone was on their face and moved over to their back, the lividity can move to the back, and vice versa, or in any other way that gravity is affecting the body. But after a certain amount of time, that lividity becomes fixed, which means that it's not going to move when the body moves. So it's fixed in the position of the dependent gravity in a body position.
Okay. And if we could advance to exhibit number 120, please. Okay. So here we are looking at exhibit number 120. What exactly do you see here, doctor, that's important to you?
This is a photograph of a wound on the top of the head. It's on the top of the head, but the posterior aspect, so the top and back of the head. You can see there, through the head hair, you can see that there is a large wound that's visible.
Okay. And exhibit number 121, please.
Again, that's a close-up showing that this is a gaping wound, and it's a full-thickness gaping wound, because even now, even with head hair there, you can see at the bottom of that photograph skull, you can see visible skull through the margins of the wound.
Okay. And exhibit number 122, please.
This is that same wound.
123.
This is after the head hair around it has been shaved, so you can get a better look at the margins of the wound and the tissue involving the wound, and then again you can see the skull through the base of that laceration.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, we're looking at exhibit 122 here. Okay, so tell us about this wound, doctor. Can you go into more detail about that wound? First of all, what do you believe caused it, and what were the consequences from it?
Well, this type of wound is a blunt trauma injury, meaning that it's a forceful blow to the body. Blunt trauma injuries include bruises or contusions. It includes abrasions, scraping of skin. It includes lacerations, which is kind of a crush and tear injury of the skin. And fractures are also common blunt trauma injuries. In this case, this wound is a full thickness laceration or blunt force trauma. And there is fracture of the skull too underlying this. So this is a full thickness laceration, full thickness blunt force injury, which would have been a very forceful blow with some type of heavy object I can't say specifically what that object was.
Is this something that could have been caused by human hands, or does it require something heavier and more substantial?
I cannot think of a way that this could have been caused by a human hand.
Okay. So when you say a heavy object, can you elaborate on that?
Objection, Judge calls for speculation.
Overrule the speculation objection so long as it's within your ability as a doctor to describe it with some specificity.
Heavy object being something not lightweight, something with some weight to it, and it would be used forcefully to cause this injury.
Okay. Would it have had to have had a sharp edge to it at some point?
This is a blunt force injury, so blunt force injuries wouldn't necessarily be caused by anything sharp. There's no sharp margin of the wound. When you think of a laceration is kind of a crushing, tearing injury. Like if you had a piece of material and you tore it and you have those little bridging fibers between it, that's kind of what happens with a laceration that you can see in that photograph. A sharp force injury is going to have smoother margins, like if you had that same material and you cut it with scissors, and it would be nice and smooth on each side. So this is a blunt force injury.
Okay. If we could advance to the next slide, which is exhibit 123. 123? What are we looking at here?
This is the same wound. In the previous photographs, it's gaping open. So we try to reapproximate the margins to see if we can get any other identifying features. Not necessarily to determine right from the picture what it was, but if we have something that we could compare it to later, it might help, in that comparison.
In exhibit 124.
That is the same wound, reapproximated with the margins pushed together. You can see there's some perpendicular lacerations extending from the margins of the wound.
Okay. And how long was this wound?
The wound was 9 centimeters in length, which is approximately 3.5 inches.
And go ahead and describe the consequences of this wound. What conditions did you see? What flowed from that?
Well, on the internal examination, when the skin is removed from the scalp, there's a skull fracture that's visible. And then when the top of the cranium is taken off and we look at the brain inside, there's actual bruising of the brain. There's subarachnoid hemorrhage of the brain, which is the thin layer that covers the brain itself. And then the dura, which is a thicker membrane around the brain, there was subdural hemorrhage or hemorrhage underneath that dura. So it not only affected the skin and the skull, it also affected the brain.
Okay. And when you say subdural hemorrhage, what exactly does that mean?
That means that there's collection of blood, that there was bleeding inside the cranial cavity that collected in the subdural space.
Okay. And you also used a word that I have the same question for, subarachnoid hemorrhage. What is that?
The arachnoid layer is a very thin, translucent tissue that covers the external part of the brain. And so it would be hemorrhage underneath that layer.
And you indicated that there was a skull fracture present as well?
Correct.
Okay, can you describe that for the jury?
The skull fracture starts at the point where you see this laceration, and it curves around to the left side of the skull, the left parietal and frontal region of the skull. So it's a linear fracture extending from the point of the blow.
And is there also cerebral edema
Yes.
present? Can you explain to the jury what that is?
When the brain undergoes trauma like this, one of the things that quickly happens is the brain swells because of the injury. So cerebral edema is swelling of the brain.
Dr. O'Neill, can you, based on your training and experience, can you describe for the jury, as best you can, how much force was used to cause the injuries to Miss Wise's head that we've seen thus far?
Well, what I could say is it's extreme force. It's one forceful blow with an instrument that would be heavy enough to create that wound.
Okay. Is the wound that you just...
In other words, this death was brutal. Just brutal, the way that she was killed. We'll hit pause on the ME's testimony, get you back in live in just a moment. 8.5 months pregnant, a young mother found brutally murdered.
To lose a child, there's no words for it.
Now the victim's boyfriend, a married father of 4, is
charged for the murder of his alleged mistress and her unborn child.
That's one of the things that struck me. He was not remorseful.
From the first gavel to the final verdict, Court TV takes you inside the South Florida courtroom
for this tragic death penalty case.
The pregnant mistress murder trial. Live coverage today, only on Court TV. Wait.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. Let's get you back into the pregnant mistress murder trial in Florida. We've got the medical examiner on the stand who just said that an extreme amount of force was used to hit Tania Wise with a fatal blow.
Okay. We're looking at 125. I'm sorry. Go ahead and describe this for the jury.
This is a photograph of the same injury. The skull is present at the base.
Okay. And 126? What are we looking at here?
This is a photograph of the skull after the scalp has been removed. During the autopsy examination, we make an incision across the top of the scalp and reflect it forward and reflect it backward. So this injury, that you can see that the skull is visible, the entire skull is visible. And you can see that linear, there's a line that's going in the picture, it's horizontal just above where the ruler is, and that's the fracture. The point of impact being on the right side of that, and then that linear fracture extending across that photograph.
Okay. And the next exhibit? Which is what? We're looking at 127 here. Go ahead and explain what we're looking at here.
Again, that is the fracture, the linear fracture. The top of the head is actually just above the ruler there. The top of the head is towards the right. So that would have been underlying that point of impact. And then you see the linear fracture. It gives you a little bit better location of how that fracture starts at the top posterior part of the head and then goes around the left side of the skull.
Okay. And 128, please. Okay. Again, what are we looking at?
This is a photograph of the brain after the skull cap has been removed. You can see there's darker red regions of the brain, and then there's more pink or lighter regions of the brain. The darker red regions are where there is hemorrhage and contusion of the brain. And that would be, there's a little thin translucent membrane. That's the subarachnoid membrane that we were talking about, and you can see that there's hemorrhage underneath that.
Okay. And the next exhibit, which is 129. Okay, so let's transition from the head injury to other injuries over the body. What were the locations on the body that you observed additional injuries?
There was a large incised wound that extends from the front of the neck to the back of the neck. And then in this photograph, you see a smaller incised wound, which is on the left clavicular region of the body, so just near the left clavicle. That's an incised wound. That's a sharp wound. If you look at the margins of that wound, you see they're nice and smooth. So it's caused by something that's sharp.
I believe we're looking at 129 here. And go ahead and I believe you said this was on the clavicle?
In the clavicular region of, yes.
Okay. And how deep and long was this wound?
This one was 2 centimeters in length and 0.5 centimeters in depth. To give you a comparison, 2.54 inches is related to a centimeter. So, I mean, 2.54 inches.
Oh, just brutal, the way Tania Wise was killed. Let's bring in our law enforcement analyst for some final thoughts this hour. Sonny Slaughter watching along with us. Sonny, tell me, as you're hearing this medical examiner detail how this occurred, what are your thoughts on how the jurors are receiving the information?
Thank you, Julie, for having me once again. I think this is so brutal. And if I'm an external juror, like many of us watching, and I think they believe that the death of this young woman and her unborn child was heinous, it was horrific, it was hurtful, and she died brutally. So I can only imagine what they are feeling and thinking as they see the defendant, as he is constantly writing. I don't know what the heck he is writing, which is irritating me, but he's showing no emotion. I'm on television. I shouldn't be showing emotion, and he's just acting like he doesn't care. So I can only imagine that they are thinking this young lady died a horrific death, and if the evidence and facts bear out, that they will convict him accordingly based on the facts of the case as they see them. You know, it's up to them to determine his guilt, but and I can't say whether he is actually guilty because we've only started, but this is a heinous death, a horrible way to die. And I'm glad her mother kept her eyes closed because I don't want her to see her daughter that way.
Right, my friend. I know that's tough because, as we know, she's got a right to be present in the courtroom. And as you know, Sonny, oftentimes the advocates will say maybe we go outside at this moment for this. And apparently it was important for her to hear it, but just not see it. Every good wish to her as this trial progresses. Sonny Slaughter, always a delight to have you on the program and have your insight. Thank you so very much.